Hi everyone, this is Kevin Thorpe. Today what I'm going to be talking to you about is how to do the basic functions of virtual cinematography, which really boils down to you've established a scene and you are going to set up a camera path and you're going to use the tools that will allow you to manipulate the way that the camera follows that path and views the content. And so I'm going to be working with a couple of different tools here, primarily. I'm going to be working with the camera path tool, which is this one right here. And right now I don't have any camera path set up. So the only option is to add a new path. And I'm going to be working with the local media library. Actually, I've already done the work with the local media library. So I've loaded a series of images into my sketch, and I'll show you that in a minute, and a couple of videos. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fly tool to get us a little bit closer to what we're going to be working on today. So right now you're looking at through the spectator camera. That's the tool that you are viewing right now, which gives you very limited ability to manipulate the content of a video. But we will... That's covered in a different video, but it allows you to see my work because what it does is it records the monitor. So I'm actually recording the image that's sent to the monitor, and that is done using a tool called the Spectator Cam. The Spectator Cam is available under More Options and then under Labs. And so I'm working with the Spectator Cam, and I'm using the stationary. And there's different options you can do there, but we're not going to go into that here. What we are going to do is I'm going to take you in a little bit and I'm going to show you. So what I'm doing is my students in this virtual cinematography course have an assignment to do a marketing video that we will then record and publish. What we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use Destination Door County because I just did a trip to Door County. And so I'm going to be using images and videos from that trip to lay this out. And that's what you see in this local media library. Now, the only thing that we will use this for anymore is for the manipulation of these videos. So I have two videos in here. One is that background image, the space thing. And this allows me to, when I touch that with my controller, it changes the control of this to whatever video I've touched last. And that allows me to pause it, play it, jump, or control the sound from that. Now, I'm not recording sound from my computer at this point, so you're not hearing it. But for instance, when I click on this one, which is my primary shot in this, I'm going to build this entire video around this video of my wife on a paddleboard in the background to give the ambiance of Door County. The audio is going to come from there. The video is going to come from there. The video is about 1 minute long, so that's the maximum length that I can do this without it looping. So that is my goal, is to figure out how to fit this in with the timing of that. And I'm either going to shoot for 30 seconds or 1 minute, and I'll decide that as I'm going along. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that running, and I'm going to set this panel aside because it's not going to be useful to us for a while. So I'm going to just kind of put that away for now so that it's not in my way. And I'm going to throw that spectator camera away so it disappears too. And I'm going to fly back out, and I'm going to give you a sense of what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to start with an establishing shot that is going to have this, the entire screen is going to be filled with this nebula, and the only thing you're going to see is the white dot from that Door County sign or the Destination Door County logo. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom quickly into this sign so that none of the stuff that's behind the scene there can be seen until we go under that. And then we're going to come up into the scene and we're going to move back and forth left and right with this image staying stationary in the background and the camera swinging left and right, and making its way through a path that to highlight all of the different videos that images that I've imported at this point. So let's talk about the tools first. So the first tool that you're going to end up using a lot is the scale, just because you're going to end up doing a lot of moving in, moving out, checking angles. So the way that tool is used is simply by gripping the two handles and pulling your controllers in and out. That is the most fundamental tool in OpenBrush, and that gives you the ability to be more efficient and not have to walk all around in order to accomplish the things that you're trying to do. The other tool that I'm going to use is this camera pass tool, and we need to start with our first point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this add new path, and I'm going to come out here to about where I wanted to start. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to come in close to this Door County, and then I know that I'm going to want to come under this shot, under this, and so we'll start with just those 3 points. So the purpose of the camera path is to control your progress as the camera moves through the scene. And there's a series of tools that you can use. You can add additional anchor points. And what an anchor point does is establishes the next section of the path. And so you have to have 2 anchor points for each section of the path that you want to do. So that's what this first tool is the tool to allow you to add anchor points. And the way that this works is that there are 2 viewfinders. One is on the path panel, and so you manipulate this with your brush tool. The other one is on the path itself, and it allows you to see what the view is from anywhere on that path. Now you see that as I move my hand, it's kind of moving up and down. We want to fix that by establishing what direction we want this to point. We do that with the next tool on here. By the way, this is the delete point. That allows you to delete any of the points, whether it's a direction point, a speed point, or a zoom point. And those are our options. We've got the anchor point that we've already talked about, direction point, speed point, and zoom point. And those are the only tools that you have in order to do this, but it gives you a huge amount of flexibility. So let's start with a direction point. I know that when I start here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to come and I'm going to place it on the path, and I'm going to squeeze the trigger, and that allows me to zoom the direction so that I can see what direction it's going to point. When I let go, you'll see that there is a camera there, and now I have the ability to move this viewfinder along the path, but I don't have the ability to move the direction of it. That's done with the direction points. So I know that I'm going to go ahead and establish my direction points near each of the anchor points, and I'll do this, and so you can see I pull the trigger, I can see that destination, Door County, and you notice you can't see any of my other shots in that viewfinder. And then when we're going to come down here and we're going to establish onto that video of the paddleboard, and that's going to be our first basic path. So now what we have the ability to do is in this initial viewfinder, you can control anywhere on the path that you want. Let me move this a little bit out of the way. By grabbing this little slider bar and going through. Now, when you get to really complicated paths, and you will, I hopefully will, this is really important because you can lose track of where you are, where it is in some of these really complicated paths. And so let's see what that looks like. I'm telling you right now, it's probably going to be too slow because I want this to zoom in for this initial shot. I want it to zoom in really quickly, and then I want it to slow down when it gets to the destination Door County sign. So let's see how close that is to what we want. Okay, that's already too slow. So rather than making you endure watching that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my first speed point. And you'll notice that when I put it on, when I apply it to a line, you can see which section of the path it is applying to. So I know I'm going to change the speed down here. So I'll put one there, and I'll put one here, and then I'm going to put one here. So this is going to be the one that establishes the speed, and so that's the one I want to work on first. Now, the way that you control this is you put your brush hand onto that item, and you can either, when you grip it, you can either grip the bottom part or you can grip the top part. The bottom part and gripping is grabbing it with the inside part of your controller here. If you grip the bottom part, it allows you to change the location on the path. If you grip the top part, it allows you to change the speed. So you saw how slow our speed was before. We're going to want to speed that up, but I really don't know where I want to go. But the range is from 0.1 to 100. So that gives you a lot of flexibility in speed. So if we run this, you can see that's running right now, and this is barely moving. As I move this up, it starts going faster and faster. If I bring it all the way up to 100, now that slowed down because this other speed point has started affecting it. So in the transition between any 2 points, there is a transition. And so I'm actually going to move this point, and I want to stop that because it's just going to keep moving if I don't. I'm going to actually delete this point for now. So let's now look, now that I've deleted that, this speed point applies to this section of the path. And when I bring that back and we look at that again, it's still doing a little bit of buffering at the end, but I'm getting that real fast movement at the beginning. So okay, so that's okay for right now. Let me see, where is my point at? I'm at 100, so that's going to be as fast as it can move. I've got my establishing direction, and I can always go in and grab a hold of that. So I select it with the wand. When it changes colors, I can grab it with using the grip, and then pull the trigger to see where it's aimed. Whoops, I had the delete points on, so I'm going to use the undo. The undo button is definitely your friend. And so I'm going to move this back here. And then I want to go ahead and add a zoom point too. So we've already got a direction point. We've already got a speed point. Let's add a zoom point onto this. And what the zoom does is allows me to change how far into the scene I want to have my zoom set. So the range is from 10, which is you zoom in the tightest, to 140, and that is zoomed out at the furthest distance. So what we're looking at here is we have the ability in this particular location to go from pretty tight zoom to something that is way beyond what we want for this. Now, I want this first shot to completely include that solar or the space background. So I've set that, it's at 81 right now. And it's got a really fast zoom. Let's see what it does. Zooms in to Door County. Okay, so one of the things that I want to make sure is that as I'm zooming in, that you cannot see any of those photos that are behind the Destination Door County logo. And if you really were able to zoom in, you can see that right now they're showing. And I don't really want that. Now, as you get closer to the logo, that changes that. So they disappear behind it. So there's a couple of things that I could do. I could change the size of this sign so that it's larger, but I don't think that's really what I want to do here. Because that would make it back larger in the establishing shot. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see where I can see those images. And the one that I'm mostly concerned with is this establishing, the one that is of the paddleboard, and you can see that that is visible. So there's a couple options that I can do here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually lower this down a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the handles here. I've got the ability to change the curve, but if you notice the way that I just did that, that actually makes it larger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these paddles. The paddles allow you to change the arc that you get between any 2 points. So going from here to here, these paddles will affect that line, and these paddles will affect that line. And anytime you move those handles, you are affecting the arc on both sides of that. But so what I see is that I'm still getting that in that scene. So I'm going to actually just adjust this down a little bit. And then I'm going to check what I have. So let's change it so that we see it here. I'm still getting a little bit of that. And the further away I get, the more of that I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the zoom. So rather than changing the content itself, let's work with the tools that we have at hand. And I want to get, as I get somewhat closer, I'm going to add that zoom. And I'm going to move my tools so that I can see what I want that zoom to be. So it started out really wide. Okay. So I'm still getting that Door County now, but I like that better. I'm going to move this down and see what that does. Okay, now you see that I have it on the bottom as well. So at this point, what I'm thinking is that what I need to do is I actually need to move this logo closer so that it shows up larger in relationship to the camera in that initial shot. And so now when we look at it, there's still a little bit there at the beginning. All right, let's see what that looks like in a run through here. So I'm going to move this so you can see both viewfinders, and I'm going to run that. Ooh, that's way too fast. Okay, so 100 is too much. Let's move it down to about 70. let's take care of one thing at a time. All right. So I'm going to end up doing some tweaking on this. I don't want to do the complete tweak at this point because I've got the tools that allow me to manage this. And this becomes, each time you change something before or after a particular spot in a shot, it changes the whole thing. So I'm still kind of wondering what the best way to do this is, but I think if we put that there, maybe we even go through the, have the camera go through that side. That is a possibility. What will that look like? Then it'll come through and suddenly it'll pop out. So I still like the ability to zoom down. So what I'm going to do, or not to zoom down, but to go below the side rather than passing through it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take off the add zoom point. I'm going to grab this point. And right now, because you can only see the image from one side, I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to move it right about there. And with that zoom, it's got a lot. So let's see what have we got here. A little bit when it's way up there. Let's see. Okay, let's run this and see. And this is the way that it plays out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've introduced you to the direction tools, I've introduced you to the speed tools, and I've introduced you to the zoom tools. Now, we haven't really played with the change of this. We've got, let me clear this particular speed point out of there. And when we look at what we have without that second speed point, it's really fast and it continues really fast. So what we want to do is we want to slow that down when it gets in the vicinity of this Door County. So what I'm going to do, let's actually accidentally move the camera there. I'm going to add a speed point and I'm going to put it on this section of the path. And let's put that at about a 6, just for kicks and grins. And let's see what we get here. So I want to play with the zoom a little bit. Again, our zoom applies to both sides of where that zoom is located. And I think that's going to get it. So we start. All right, let's go right into it. Well, I kind of like the way that that's going. So that, obviously, there's going to need to be tweaking that needs to be done. I'm going to set up this establishing shot with you all in here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the camera and just do the work, because there's time involved in doing all this, and you don't want to watch the whole thing in this video. So let's work on this one here. So we've got, there's our tool. Again, we can grab the camera here. So we've got it coming in, destination Door County. And I want to actually start down at that point. So what I'm going to do is actually move this down and I'm going to give it an arc so that as it comes in here, you're going to slide underneath that. Now, I want it to zoom out a little bit more. So I'm going to move this a little bit closer, and let's see what we do with that. So this is sort of the critical point right here. We're going to start our transition down. So I'm actually going to move this point along the timeline. And by doing that, I change the location of the timeline. And then I want it so that at this point, I want that zoomed in all the way in on that video. So I'm going to add another zoom point to this line right here. So grab my tool, I put it here, and then, oops. That's as zoomed in as I can get. And I want that to be larger at that point. So now I have some decisions to make. Now where I've gotten into trouble is when I move this further up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to readjust this position so that I can get, with my ability to zoom, I need to be a lot closer on all of these points. So we'll move this out of the way at the moment, move this in, and again, I know that I want the video of, so I've got the selection tool. I'm also using layers. And so my camera paths are on my main layer, but all of my assets, the pictures and stuff, are on the second layer. So I'm going to make my layer active, and I do that with the layers tool. I turn that on, and now I've made layer 1 active. That allows me to select this, move it out of the way. In fact, it allows me to grab all these that are on that path and move them out of the way. Now you see those two? It didn't let me grab those, or those pictures right there. That means that those are in the main layer. So I'm actually, oh, they're locked. Okay, so I had locked those pictures into place. I bring up the labs, and it's a good habit to lock certain of your functions, certain of your stuff in place. So I'm going to unlock that, and I recommend you watch the videos on how to use the there we go. And sometimes when it's hard to grab something, you zoom in. That makes it easier. So I clicked on that and just moving it out of the way here so I can establish my shot. And when we return back to our location, we've got it coming in. The door counting is going to be in the shot somewhere about like this. And then as we start coming under it, it's going to have, with that 10 zoom, it's going to have the entire thing in the frame. from the very beginning. So just some minor tweaks here. And you'll notice that I'm using a lot of tools to do this. It can get very intricate what we're doing here. So I'm going back to adding a zoom point, and I'm going to add it on this segment. And I'm going to adjust this particular frame. And I want to change the location of that zoom point to a little bit earlier. At this point, I'm into doing the fine tweaking of what I've got going on here. And I still need to be in the point where I'm doing broad tweaking. So this is going to come under the door county and adjust that a little bit. Let's bring it back to the beginning and see what we got. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my shot. One of the things I'll go ahead and demonstrate here before I do that is that once I get into this area, I'm going to zigzag back and forth. And I'm going to strategically place these images along the paths that go back and forth. And I think that it's going to take about 6 swings to do this. So I'm going to add these anchor points at this point. And so I'm going to add one there. I'm going to use that one. And then I'm going to just add a few more points. And what I'll do is I'll adjust these so that they have that zigzagging ladder. And I'll do that intricate work and get everything aligned. And then I'll come back into the video and show you what we have done. But I'm going to pre-stage this so that you can see what I've got working here. All right, so I'm going to save this sketch. I'm going to go in, I'm going to work it, my angles, my direction, my speed, and I'm going to set this up, and then I'll bring you back in and I will show you what we've ended up with. So I'm going to save my sketch, save that as a new sketch, and I will check in with you guys after I've done a little bit of this legwork.